Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, June 6th, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the predicted market electoral map. They do have an overall pretty much market share where people can go ahead and purchase shares for whichever candidate they believe will win the presidential election. However, a number of markets do that, and Predicted likes to go a step further. They in fact hold these for every single state, states from North Dakota to Maryland to Pennsylvania. I mean, every single state on this map, including the District of Columbia, has a market in which Donald Trump and Joe Biden have shares in, not necessarily from their supporters, but from whichever candidate people believe will win in those states. So, for example, in North Dakota, a very solid Republican state, the Republican Party has a 94-cent share, whereas states such as Nevada have an 81-cent share for the Democratic Party. So it's very clear as to who believes Joe Biden will do well in one state or Donald Trump will do well in another, and it's very important to take a look at stuff like this. While it's not always accurate, in 2016 they predicted a Hillary Clinton victory. They also gave Donald Trump a much better shot at the presidency than what a lot of mainstream media outlets did. So I would say that the markets, while not always accurate, do provide some insight as to the accuracy of the election. And the fact that it's close right now, obviously one of these two guys on the right is going to become the next president or continue to be president. So I would say the fact that it's pretty close right now is very interesting. In 2016, it was very much lopsided the entire campaign season. There was a point in time where Donald Trump had a narrow lead over Hillary Clinton, but pretty much throughout the whole season, Hillary Clinton dominated in terms of the predicted market, and not just here, but everywhere. And when we're looking at this electoral map, you can pretty much see the results on your screen right now. So if you don't want to hear me talk about it or you just want to skip to the end, go ahead and do that, because I'm just going to be putting it on the electoral map and discussing how these states have since shifted from the last time I made a map like this. So in the past, I mean, I have seen times where Florida would be red and North Carolina would be blue, or North Carolina would be blue and Florida would be red. The last time I made a map like this, I believe it was 289 electoral votes to 249. I don't know if they include Maine's 2nd district. Yes, they do. But it was pretty much with the Rust Belt blue and Arizona blues. But since it has shifted, I've decided to make a video about it just to discuss where the ratings put this. So I'm going to go ahead and pretty much characterize all of the safe states. I know I did have my own version of the ratings for this map, but in reality, we know that some of these states are just going to be, I'm just going to characterize it the same way that Predicted does, because then it's a lot easier to understand in case you missed the 10-second bit of the video where I discuss my margins. So we're going to go ahead and just characterize. Pretty much nothing fundamentally changes on the general electoral map. But when we're looking at the overall numbers, it is very interesting that Joe Biden is expected, based off these markets, to have a higher margin of victory than Obama in 2012. And when you think about stuff like that, it is very interesting because of the fact that Joe Biden was already coming into this election. To be honest, he was supposed to win it, but this is Donald Trump's election to lose. Donald Trump defied all odds by winning in 2016, and he very well could in 2020. He just needs to play his cards right. He's the incumbent president. Whenever you're the incumbent, it's your race to lose. You've won this race before, and also, unless you have really messed up in office, then nothing really should change in terms of support from your previous electorate. So when we're looking at the overall electoral map, the fact that it has shifted to a point where states that were red in 2016 or red since 96, such as Arizona, you do start to question whether or not these states will be super reliable for the Republican Party in the future or the Democratic Party in the future. But we're going to go ahead and see. I'm not sure if I missed any states that I would consider to be safe at this point. I'm pretty sure this is just what matches up with the map here. I filled in all the Democratic states. So let's talk about some of these likely Republican states. So two states that I haven't seen change much are Texas and Iowa. Despite new polling data out of Texas, Texas hasn't really dwindled that much. If we take a look at the 90-day trend, Donald Trump has pretty much held a consistent lead over Joe Biden, never really breaking up into the 80-cent share this entire time. Yes, Joe Biden has narrowly inched up 4 cents, but that really doesn't mean much. The fact that the polling data indicates that the race will be tied, if you look at the FiveThirtyEight, a B pollster from Public Policy Polling, and a Trump +1 from Quinnipiac, you know, it's supposed to be close based off those numbers alone. But nobody really is giving the thought of a Joe Biden victory. It just isn't being reflected in the market. Yes, a 30% chance, if you converted this to percentages, would be a good chance for Joe Biden. But there's just a lack of attention on some of these states because people know how they're going to go. Regardless of what the polls say, they're pretty solid on their characterizations, and they are putting their money where their mouth is. And if you look at Iowa, again, very consistent. Despite Iowa supposedly being closer, according to the same public policy polling, it still doesn't narrow up in terms of the overall chances for some of these candidates. Whereas if you look at other states, as a result of everything that's happening, Wisconsin has the Democrat lead, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina. So people are getting a lot more confident in Democrats' victory in some of these states. For Ohio and Georgia, I think it is very interesting that these states remain in the Republican column. Again, we see pretty much consistent numbers with the states such as Georgia and Ohio. While we did see very consistent numbers with Arizona prior to 2020, Donald Trump had a point in time. So this is 90 days. If you looked at one of my older videos, as soon as Joe Biden started leading here, I made a video about it because it was very interesting. And you could see that Donald Trump led the entire time, the entire campaign season. But now, as you can see, Joe Biden has pretty much leveled off up to 61 cents for a share in the state of Arizona. But it is very fascinating that some of these states have since flipped, even though they were very solid. So Texas and Iowa are likely states, but those are the only likely ones that predicted market shows for Donald Trump. They also give him the state of Ohio, and that gives him 204, I'm assuming, from the Maine 2nd District. Let's go ahead and see which party will win Maine 2nd District. They do give Donald Trump a really good shot at Maine 2nd District. So that's pretty much all of the electoral vote numbers for Donald Trump. I would say that's actually bad news because that means Nebraska's 2nd District must go to the Democrats according to these numbers. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and characterize all of the likely states. These are states I'm assuming they consider lean 60 cents, 51 cents, 51, 61. So sometime around there, I guess maybe 65 cents is considered. No, actually, I guess up to 70 or I really don't know. Okay. Yeah. 65, I'm assuming, is the cutoff for likely. So we do have a number of those states. While we do have some other safe states, I did not characterize yet because I do need to mention the fact that these are swing states and they are being considered safe by the market. People are so solid in a Democratic victory that Donald Trump's share around here is 14 cents. In states such as Colorado, a state that Mitt Romney's campaign in 2012 was heavily targeting Donald Trump's campaign, not so much in 2016, but still ended up losing it, 10 cents for a share. In New Mexico, it gets to a point where it's 11 cents. And then you go over to Nevada, where it's an 81-cent share for the Democrats and 18 for the Republicans. These are larger margins than Ohio, Georgia, Texas, Iowa. And these are all states that most of them, actually all of them, had larger margins of victory for Hillary Clinton than Nevada and rivaled and had larger margins of victory than Virginia. Georgia was probably the same as Virginia. So when we're looking at those numbers, it is very interesting that these states have taken a much more solid Democratic stance, whereas some other Republican states have lightened up. And that's exactly reflective of where the entire media thinks this race is going. It is important to note that on the 90-day trend, Donald Trump has pretty much consistently led Joe Biden nationwide up until recently. And now, at some point, Joe Biden had the largest percentage share than any other candidate the entire 2017 to 2020, just a short couple of days, because of the things that are happening nationwide. Nothing really impacted Donald Trump then, not COVID-19. In fact, that increased his chances on PredictIt. Nothing really impacted him except for these protests and riots that are happening around the country, taking a direct impact on the way that people think this election is going to go. And it will take a direct impact. That's my video later today actually discussing that. So while these states are safe, we have some other states that are considered likely that are also horrible news for President Trump. Michigan and Pennsylvania were crucial to his victories in 2016. Yes, he could have won without them, but if they're going blue, other states are following. So Pennsylvania and Michigan and Minnesota are all states considered likely by this characterization. People are getting a lot more comfortable with the idea of Joe Biden winning in states such as Pennsylvania. When you look at the 90-day trend, it's been overall good news for Joe Biden. Very consistent, very similar to what we see in the South and what we see in Ohio. However, I will say that the fact that these numbers have not fluctuated in favor of Donald Trump, even with his approval rating shooting up in the sense that it could 2%, but still, Michigan and Pennsylvania have been pretty solid for Joe Biden, and it looks like this is only going to continue that. For states such as Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, and Arizona, again, Donald Trump actually had a point in time where he was pretty close, right at the end of the campaign season. So this was right around Super Tuesday time. We figured out who the nominee was going to be. Joe Biden peaked around 65%, but that's also because there were other Democratic candidates in the race. But, it was narrowing slightly. I mean, 55 cents to 60 cents. It does increase for Joe Biden. But, again, pretty consistent and pretty solid for a Joe Biden victory. Even when Donald Trump was on top here, they still expected Joe Biden to win in statewide races. That comes as a result of some people who invest money into these markets thinking Joe Biden will win Michigan, but not Wisconsin, or Joe Biden will win Wisconsin, not Michigan. So while these people may not necessarily have agreed on the electoral map and did believe Joe Biden would win based off that, but maybe not altogether, the overall presidential election winner they believed to be Donald Trump. So Wisconsin, we're going to actually go ahead and characterize as lean. Nebraska's 2nd district, which was 62 cents for a share, we'll characterize that one as lean. Maine is actually, let's see what the characterization is there. Maine is a likely state, and so is actually, oh wow, I didn't characterize this. So is New Hampshire. So that's another 4 electoral votes to add to Joe Biden's column. So he's already won the election. He doesn't need North Carolina, Florida, or Arizona, but he's going to get them based off this market. Donald Trump pretty much always led in Florida. He's had a pretty consistent lead recently, in fact, to a point where he peaked at 57 cents for a share and 58 cents right as of March 8th, 2020. So Joe Biden never really had a lead here except for a small point in time. And now, I mean, he, though I think will be recaptured by Donald Trump, has a lead over him for the first time in a very long time, in a couple of months now. So Florida goes to Joe Biden. As we move over into states such as North Carolina, I'm actually going to characterize that one as tilt because it is 51 cents for the share in North Carolina. While it is tied, the Democrats have been leading, so I'm assuming that's why they characterize it as blue. If you look at the 90-day trend, been pretty solid for Donald Trump. Again, only recently, only now, is Joe Biden leading nationwide. Sorry, not nationwide, statewide in North Carolina. So that's enough to put it over the top as well. And for Arizona, this one's actually been mildly consistent in recent days, in the past couple of months. But before this, Donald Trump had a very solid lead. And as you can see, it drastically changed. All of a sudden, Joe Biden skyrockets up and continues that commanding lead up into 61 cents for a share for a state that hasn't gone to the Democrats in actually around 3 decades. So that's crazy. So let's go ahead and characterize Arizona for the Democratic Party. That one actually isn't tilt, so it's actually just a characterization for the Democratic Party. So that finalizes the map. Based off of where the markets are and where people are putting their money and where they are very confident in terms of the race and outcome of these states, Joe Biden would win 334 electoral votes. Donald Trump would win 204. So this would actually be mildly reflective of the 2012 electoral numbers, 332 to 206, just a little bit of an overperformance for Vice President Biden on this map. While this map is likely to change, and I will update you guys as they do change, right now the predicted map shows Joe Biden with a victory nationwide. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Please consider subscribing and joining my channel if you can. The button is right next to the subscribe button. And yeah, so I'll see you all later today. I'm going to make a video discussing the impact of the riots and the protests on the country and discuss the implications of that as we proceed through the election. So again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later today.